Hello, this is today's Mocar, Kim Han-yong. There's a lot of buzz on the international internet about Kia's new sports sedan. The style is, of course, expected to be stunning. It's said to come with an electric powertrain, which makes it even more exciting. But in reality, a car like this isn't just any car. It's called a halo car, meant to lead the entire brand. It's said to be the best in terms of performance, design, and even price. We don't know that yet. Nevertheless, when this car is released, it will transform Kia's image to be younger, more stylish, and more dynamic. So, let's take a brief look at what kind of car will be created. Yes, let's take a look at the article. According to the Spanish automotive media outlet Motor España, during a recent Kia EV3 test drive event in Europe, President Song Ho-sung mentioned that they are redeveloping the EV8. It was previously halted. They decided to resume it after a year, and this has been confirmed. It's really good news, isn't it? There have been many people who weren't satisfied with the style of electric cars because they generally have a similar shape. They look a bit bulky. The Kia EV6, the Ioniq 6, the Ioniq 5, they all look somewhat like crossovers. They give off a feeling of being neither an SUV nor a sedan, which feels ambiguous. But now, a more traditional car, something sporty, a car that you really want to own, that feels exciting and attractive when you drive it, is what people have been looking for. It seems that a dream car that even conservative consumers will desire and enjoy driving is finally going to appear. Oh, did you know it was discontinued? It's a shock absorber, you know. There are probably many people who would say that. Honestly, we are also skeptical. If it were a long-term plan, it would be different. But we heard not long ago that it was being discontinued, so we thought it was definitely stopped. But suddenly they say it's coming out again. What this is about is that around this time last year, it was officially announced that a car called the GT1 would be released. If you look at this chart, it's a list of Kia's upcoming new car models. In 2024, the Gwangmyeong SV, known as the EV3, is coming out. The one labeled CT is the EV4, which will be released soon. The one labeled OV is the EV5, which is also coming out. The WPV5 is set to be released this summer, so seeing that everything mentioned is happening, it seemed very credible. But then, the chart indicated that a car called the GT would be launched at the Hwaseong Plant 3 next year, and everyone was very excited. However, in April last year, they suddenly announced the suspension of the project. Why did that happen? At that time, the atmosphere was that the electric car market had changed drastically, so they decided to stop it. When the EV6 first came out, the atmosphere was quite strange. Typically, with electric cars, you had to wait 7 to 8 months after ordering, so people would buy any car that came out first and cancel the rest, making sure to at least place a steering wheel order. It was like a just take my money, when the EV6 was released. People thought, wow, 50 million, 60 million, full option 70 million won, that's cheap. So at that time, they thought that if they made a sportier, more luxurious and more stylish electric car, it would obviously sell better, but it wasn't the case. The chart also mentioned the transmission and shock absorber, which added to the credibility of the information. Electric cars have become something more than just a few early adopters driving them. Once those people bought them, there was a need for more general electric cars, but there were too few affordable electric cars available. So there was talk about how electric cars weren't selling well, and it became a problem. But thinking back, it's kind of funny, because most of the cars labeled as electric cars were priced at 50 million won. How can everyone afford a 50 million won electric car? Even among Genesis cars, the expensive ones are 50 million won. For most people, 50 million won is a significant amount of money that can really strain their finances. How many people can actually buy a car at that price? Of course, it's not feasible. It's not just a few early adopters buying cars. They need to be purchased widely and popularly, which is why there was a need for such cars. In that regard, the popularity of the EV3 in the 30 million won range, the popularity of the Casper EV, or even the 31 million won BYD Atto 3, which is said to have really poor ride quality, is drawing a lot of interest. So, we can say that small and affordable electric cars are the trend now. In this situation, a luxury electric convertible, wow, that would be difficult, so it was discontinued. In fact, there is another reason why it was discontinued at that time. If you look at the list of popular cars in Korea and the United States, they include Tinting, Santa Fe, Carnival, Telluride, and Palisade. Last year, even in our country alone, the SUV ratio was as high as 61.4%. So for the first time, SUVs accounted for over 60%. The situation is similar in the United States. In the US, SUVs are overwhelmingly popular, accounting for 58%. Even in Europe, which is known as a hatchback market, the SUV market share is said to be 56%. So in this situation, there would naturally be concerns about whether an electric sedan, especially a sporty and expensive convertible, would have market potential. That's why the GT1 project was announced to be discontinued this time. However, for the EV3 test drive in Europe, they are reviving the GT1 project again. According to the media, Kia's president Song Ho-sung did not specify exactly when it would be released, but the media noted that recently even Mercedes has discontinued the EQS AMG, indicating that the market potential for sporty electric sedans is not very good. Nevertheless, Kia is confident that its technology can change consumer perceptions. So, while President Song Ho-sung did not say this specifically, the media interprets it as they mentioned advancing people's perceptions through technology. It's impressive indeed, considering these aspects, just as the tinting brand image was elevated in the past, or how the EV6 elevated the brand image, there is an expectation that with the release of the EV8, Kia's brand image could be elevated to a new level as a new halo car in the electric vehicle era. Although it's not possible to say definitively whether it will actually be released, since the president mentioned it is under development, it seems likely that it will be. We should expect it to be released. So, if it does come out, let's take a closer look at what form the car might take. In fact, President Song Yun-sung mentioned that the tinting car has been discontinued and there will be no successor. So, in the case of the GT1 EV8, it shouldn't be referred to as a successor to the tinting anymore. Instead, we can expect it to emerge as a much more powerful and dynamic high-performance car. As for the powertrain, the EV8 will have a single motor rear-wheel drive model as the standard, and a high-performance dual-motor all-wheel drive model will be released. When combined, it is said to produce a whopping. It will produce 611 horsepower. The driving range is targeted at 800 kilometers with a 110 kilowatt battery. It seems almost unbelievable, but if it comes out like this, it would be really great. The important thing, of course, is the design. How this car is designed is completely unknown at the moment, as it is a tightly kept secret. However, looking at what Kia has done so far, they often take elements from concept cars and apply them. So, by looking at the concept car, we can roughly infer what this car might look like. Let's take a look at the concept car. I picked a concept car at my discretion, and the first thing that comes to mind is the Kia key. The beginning of everything was this Kia key. Even now it looks sophisticated. This is a design from 2007, nearly 20 years old, and it came out like this. When the lights are off and it's dark, the DRL lights up like this. At that time, there were no cars like this. The air dam, headlamps and such were all integrated into one, bringing the lamps to the edges like this. Nowadays, you often see DRLs used at the main end or top part of the design, and this key was the start of that. The tiger nose was also well applied from that time, and the air dam emphasizing dynamism at the end was also from this time. This key has influenced not only Kia, but also many other car brands, and in some ways, it seems Kia might have been ahead of BMW. The car is completely secretive, like a puncture shock absorber. It makes you think, right? Achieving such a design might be a stretch. Next is the KND9 Novo. The Novo is a car that came out in 2015 and it looks like this. It's not that big in size. When I saw it in person, I thought it was very cute. It felt smaller than the K3, but despite its small size, it had a sporty image. I'm not sure which part they will apply, but using the chrome on the side to separate the front and back, you can see this kind of feel in the door trim of the current EV3 interior. So, it seems like Kia plans to apply this style to various cars. That's the impression I get. In 2014, the GT4 tinting concept car was released. This Bunk concept is very different from the actual Stinger. The only thing taken from this as concept is the name. However, when you look at the headlamp design and such, you realize that Kia's current vertical lamp, which they call the Star Map Signature, originated from here. The A-pillar is treated in black, giving the impression that the roof is floating, and these elements are being applied to various Kia designs now. I think this is close to the production design of the GT steering wheel. The most likely candidate is this car. The code name for the EV8 is GT1, and there was originally a concept car named GT. It looks like this. I saw it in person at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 2011, and I was really surprised. The car is quite large, with an impressive volume like a dash cam, and it gave off an amazing feeling. What do you think of the design? Isn't it? This car was a concept before the tinting came out, so I wondered if the tinting would come out like this, and it does have a slightly similar feel, like on the doors and such, but overall, there is one completely different part. The puncture is completely different. The tinting is very sleek, sporty, and slim, whereas the GT is not flat and sharp, but rather plump, yet it seems like it would run dynamically. It feels like it overturns the stereotype that something plump can't be sleek. And if you look at the rocker panel below, it's painted black, making the side of the car look thick yet sleek. This is also intriguing because in 2011 the Tesla Model S hadn't been released yet. It was a time when people were debating whether or not to place the electric car battery on the floor. Now everyone places it on the floor, but it seems like Kia was one of the first to embrace the idea of placing the battery on the floor back then. Of course, this is not an electric car but a gasoline-based car, but it makes you think that they had electric cars in mind even then. Look at the digital side view mirror. They come out like this, like antennae, which is both interesting and cool. The aero parts around the headlamps are also very stylish. There wasn't a car with aero parts in the middle of the headlamps until then. Nowadays, you see it on cars like the Ferrari Purosangue, the Lotus Elettra, and Toyota is also doing it continuously. And if you look at the wheels, they are partially made of carbon and partially magnesium for weight reduction. Plus, the doors are coach doors. If a sports car with coach doors comes out, wouldn't that be amazing? Anyway, having a concept car like this makes me really hope that the Kia GT will take on this form. What kind of car will the EV8 be? It's still too early to talk about this, but there is one thing that's clear. It's the platform. Because in the spring of 2023, Kia engineers first started the EV8 development project. And at that time, they intended to use the EGMP. However, it turned out that the requirements for an electric sedan were not being met. This was somewhat lacking. They needed to create a new platform. That's the conclusion they reached. That's probably why it was halted, and also why it seems to have been revived, because a new platform for the EV8 was created, called the EM platform. For more details, you might want to refer to the video I showed last time. They say it's a much more flexible platform compared to the existing EGMP. Of course, it's a bit difficult to define EGMP as something specific because, as you know, EGMP is more of a concept. If you try to define it concretely, it becomes very controversial. So, it's better to see it as more of a marketing term. Nevertheless, the new EM is said to have distinct features that clearly differentiate it from EGMP. Otherwise, they would just call everything EGMP, but there are elements that make this one entirely different. There are various elements, but particularly the low center of gravity design, which the existing EGMP lacks, is considered important. This is because the existing EGMP is somewhat high, with the motor, inverter, air conditioning, valves for heat pump, right? And so on. Because of the parking brake, this is quite high. So if you look at Tesla or other cars, when you open the hood, there's a space there, but Hyundai has it all filled up so the front can't be properly made. Moreover, from the outside, the hood itself is high. Even cars like the EV6, which have a very sporty shape, have high hoods. They should be made sleek and sharp like the Tesla Model 3. Why can't they do that? That's the point. That's why people refer to the EGMP as a platform for CUVs and SUVs. But the EM is a bit different. It's said to be a platform that can accommodate not only CUVs and SUVs but also sedans and even sports cars. Just by looking at the platform photos, Hyundai's EGMP is somewhat high. But if you look at Tesla's platform, it's much lower. So, it seems like they plan to integrate various components to lower it, placing the motor and various parts at a lower position as low as the wheel height. Also, the EM can do everything, including the powertrain via OTA and supports level 3 or higher autonomous driving. Wait, so can I like what does that mean? The EM is not just about the framework or layout, it should be seen as a broad architecture concept that includes electronics as well, and the driving range is said to be improved by more than 50% compared to the Ioniq 5. Currently, the Ioniq 5 goes 500 km, so if it's more than 50%, does that mean it goes 750 km? How does it go 750 km? Anyway, that's what they say. It's a goal, so we don't know if it will actually happen. Also, the EM platform hasn't been revealed yet, but they plan to unveil the platform within this year, and more information is expected to come out. when it is first implemented in the Genesis GV90 at the end of this year or early next year. There has been more specific information released about the new architecture. These kinds of photos have been leaked. As you know, the next generation platform is largely divided into two types, EM and ES. EM can be used for general sedans or SUVs. ES is a platform for making commercial vehicles like PBVs. Therefore, PB5 will use a relatively low-cost platform. Starting with the battery system, it uses a 400V system, which suggests that rather than focusing on enhancing performance, it is designed to be affordable and reliable without malfunctions. However, an interesting point here is that it doesn't specify using NCM batteries. It states that the performance model uses NCM, but the low-cost model uses both NCM and LFP. Additionally, it shows that the capacity and arrangement can be varied, with as many as 6 battery packs. For the durable, low-cost ES, it is said that 3 battery packs can be used. But can the battery pack structure really be this diverse? But when you look at this battery pack configuration, this is the front and this is the back. Interestingly, there is a battery structure with an empty space at the back. Unusually, instead of cutting the whole thing, the middle is left intact and only the sides are cut out. What is this? It's like the Porsche sports cars where there's a hole drilled under the rear seats, allowing the seat to be lowered. It seems like a device that allows a tunnel in the middle and lets the legs drop on both sides. If utilized well, this configuration could be very helpful in making electric sedans or electric sports cars. Looking at it now, all the battery packs have the same front shape, and only the back shape is different. What does that mean? Horn. Currently, when you buy cars like the EV6 or EV3, there is usually one type of battery, although there are occasionally minus packs more. However, it seems clear that in the future, there will be more options to choose from in terms of battery size or type. A very positive aspect is why are they trying to give consumers such cheap batteries? You can choose to put in the NCM battery, though LFP. Battery range is shorter, it adds 500 kilometers. People say, oh, I want that. There might be people who say that, right? Instead of insisting on a particular steering wheel or disparaging the LFP battery as terrible, they say, if you want the steering wheel, we'll give you the steering wheel. If you want LFP, we'll give you LFP. Developing everything with an open mind like this, I think, is a very desirable phenomenon. Now, in this article, there was also a brief mention about naming. Kia will have EV1, 12, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But among these, odd numbers are SUVs, and even numbers are crossovers and sedans. That's what they say. Oh, is this true? Kia EV3 is an SUV, right? EV4 is a sedan, right? EV5 is an SUV, right? EV6. Oh, is this a crossover? EV9 is an SUV, indeed. It seems that odd numbers are definitely SUVs. It seems like Kia has its own plans, but I do wonder if this odd-even numbering is a good idea, because it's quite difficult for consumers to remember the odd-even pattern and understand, oh, this is an SUV. So, if EV5 is an SUV and EV6 is a crossover, then what is EV7? What is EV8? Isn't this confusing steering wheel? And if there's one sedan and one SUV, each, that's fine. But what are they going to do with two SUVs transmission? Maybe something like 8.5. Because it's a bit difficult to enhance the brand's identity, there should be something that makes SUVs feel like SUVs. I think about the steering wheel. It's not just Kia's problem, other brands have much more serious issues. For example, Hyundai has the Ioniq 5, right? Ioniq 6. And there's the Ioniq 9. But just from the name, you can't tell what class it is. Shock absorber. Audi also had this problem. Audi announced 2 years ago that they would name electric cars with even numbers and internal combustion engines with odd numbers. They said something like this, but it seems they decided against it after trying it out, saying they would just continue as they were and not implement the odd-even system. Originally, the A6 was supposed to be released this year, but it was planned to be called the A7. However, they decided to keep it as the A6. So what about the cars that have already been released? The A4 was released as the A5. Now that it's out, should they say it's not the A5, but the A4 again? When transitioning to electric vehicles, I think it's fine to just use the existing names. Names like Sportage are good, right? Just keep using those names like Carnival and simply add EV to them. For example, BMW adds an I in front of the 7 Series to make it i7, which is very easy and intuitive to understand. i5. i3, i5. Oh, that's nice, right? However, it's not always a good situation. For instance, GM named a car Equinox EV, but the car is too small, or Ford named a car Explorer EV, but it's a vehicle that has nothing to do with the Explorer. Using names in this way is not right, but in any case, giving similar names to cars of a similar class seems somewhat acceptable. At least, there's no need to rack your brains too much over creating a new name with new rules. So, what is the release schedule for this car? President Song Ho-sung did not clearly state when it would be released. However, according to a Spanish media outlet, considering the speed of Koreans, it will be released by 2030 at the latest. That's how they predicted it. Oh, they are underestimating South Korea. No, our Kia is not that kind of company. It's a company with indomitable will. The Spanish might not know, but Koreans have overtime work. Overtime... What do you mean by 2030? I hope that within the next 2 years, by 2027, we can definitely steering wheel it so that people all over the world can cherish Kia as their dream car. Go Korea fighting! Until now, I have been Mocar Kim Han-yong. Thank you. Such a car needs to come out, and when it does, we have to buy it, right? You'll buy it, right? When it comes out, you'll really buy it, right? South Korea will become the world's strongest in automobiles like this. There should be many internet supercars. Oh my...